Hello again. I think we'll get started with the next session, which is Energy Services for Emerging Economies on the Ground Realities. The aim of this session is to hear from a range of speakers who have different experiences and lessons learned from providing clean energy services and products within emerging markets. So I'm really delighted that we can count on, we have Meera Shah from Shell Foundation. Meera is a business development advisor, and she's going to be talking about some of the lessons learned over the last 14 years and providing access to energy. We've got Mary Roach, who is a program operations manager, and she's going to be talking about mobile-enabled community services. We then got Johnny Andringer from Gaia Wind. Gaia Wind is a manufacturer of high-performance small wind turbines, and Johnny's going to be reflecting on some of his experiences of a recent project in Tonga. We then welcome Chavi Sharma from Ashton. Chavi is the International Programs Manager, and Ashton have been supporting businesses, clean energy businesses in emerging markets for a number of years, and also has some interesting lessons to be sharing today. Our final speaker is Divyesh Thakkar of Sunlight Solar, who's going to be talking about his experience of the aid-funded business sector specifically. So we have already running out of time, and 5 really interesting speakers. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Meera Shah.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Meera Shah from the Shell Foundation. I think you've all got a bit of a flavour of the Shell Foundation from Simon, my colleague. So I'm going to use the next 10 minutes really explaining a little bit about a few of our lessons learned, not all of them, we've only got 10 minutes, on providing decentralised off-grid energy products to the rural poor in emerging markets. The reason why I'm going to focus on the rural side, I mean, you heard from Seb before the kind of astonishing numbers, the large numbers really, of the number of people who don't have access to affordable and reliable energy. You know, north of 1.4 billion people don't have at all any access to electricity. And it's really interesting because 85% of those people live in rural, remote areas where centralized power solutions aren't an option, they're not reliable, and they're not available. So I'm going to focus on decentralized energy products. And what's been interesting over the number of years is that we see more and more players come into the market, be it SMEs, be it social enterprises, be it multinational organizations. And that's been really encouraging. If we look at some of our partner organizations at the Shell Foundation, be it EnviroFit, who sold 1 million clean cook stoves globally, or D-Light, who manufacture and distribute solar products, they've sold 6 million globally. Or Mcopa have sold 100,000 assets. This is really encouraging. It proves there is a demand. It proves there's a viable business model. I mean, it's difficult, absolutely, but it works. But the thing is, just as Simon said, we've just about scratched the surface. We haven't even reached 4% penetration. And I think that's why this space is so interesting, especially for some of you who are in the audience who are looking at new opportunities in these markets. It is really difficult, and it's not just about manufacturers coming into the space. It's about the whole supply chain, looking at intermediaries working together, looking at innovative business solutions to make this happen. So if you're thinking about products and energy products, be them solar energy products, products that use energy more efficiently, I think it's really important to understand the market and understand the market that you're trying to serve. I mean, time and time again, we've seen organizations come up with great kit, great technology, but somehow it doesn't quite serve the market. And it looks great in San Francisco, but it doesn't quite work in rural Kenya. And I think it's just important to understand that as you go through that design and business model thinking. So what is the true pain point that you're trying to fix for the end customer? Is it that your consumer is buying a tin of charcoal on a daily basis, or spending 50 shillings a day on charcoal, and that's actually his or her biggest fuel cost? Or is it that the woman that you're trying to serve, her sari is completely covered in soot and her utensils are unpleasant and she just doesn't like that? Or is it that the entrepreneur can't run his shop for an extra 4 hours? I think understanding those pain points is critical, because that starts to make you think, how do I design my product? What is the value proposition for the end customer? And what is the economic incentive for them to purchase that product? I think if you can figure that out, you start to have an attractive product. And in the world where we have a lot of cheap Chinese knockoffs in markets, which is unfortunate. Trust, good design, reliability is critical. I realize I haven't actually used my slides, but that's fine. But the other point, and something that we learned, I guess the hard way, over 14 years, is the consumer here is a customer. It's actually a paying customer. It's not a beneficiary. They want reliable products, ones that are, low risk. They want to know that the person that's selling that product is going to be around tomorrow, in a year's time, in 4 years' time. And I think, again, that's critical because it not only makes you think about your forward supply chain, but also your reverse supply chain. And just understanding that, I think, will put you in a good stead in terms of designing the right product and also, thinking ahead. So even if you have the right product, even though D-Light has sold 6 million lanterns, even though M-Copa has financed 100,000 assets, why is it so hard then? Why have we not reached more than 4% penetration in the market? And the answer is it's difficult. It's plain and simple. It's really, really difficult to make this work. And it's not just about the manufacturers, right? It's about that whole value chain. And two key areas that we've seen there's many, and in the interest of time, two key areas that we've seen is the pain points and the barriers to scale. The first is around awareness. So if you're talking to a consumer who's potentially used a normal cook stove, a 3-stone cook stove for years and generations, they really need a lot of behavioral change, a lot of engagement for them to change their cooking technology. Or if it's for a solar lantern or home system consumer, they might not know there's an alternative solution. So you need to really engage with consumers from the beginning. And I think it's important to think about that from the design stage, not as an afterthought. The second key barrier that we've seen is around affordability. There's not many entry products that come into the market. So if you're talking about a low-risk, durable product, it's typically going to be upwards of $20. And $20 is like, for you and I, an investment of buying a car, right? So no one's going to take up upfront cash just like that. So just with those two barriers, and there's many more, I think it's really important to reiterate that what we're dealing with here is a push product. It's not a pull product. And when you're dealing with a push product, you need to think about your route to market. It's not enough to just think I've got kit and I can just leverage a Unilever or an MFI or so on, because someone's got to be on the ground selling that product, activating that market. And typically we've seen, a decent conversion ratio of consumer behavior around 10%. That's really hard. So even if you're talking to 100 people, only 10 people are going to buy that product. That costs money. And you have to think about how you're going to do that, working backwards, right when you design that product, so that you build in the margin across the supply chain. And I think that one of the reasons why this is hard is because, as we see it at least, there isn't really an existing viable supply chain out there. And so what does that mean? You either create your own sales and distribution organization or you leverage someone else's. So let's say you do leverage someone else's. I think it's important to choose the right distribution partner. And reach is obviously important. What is their reach? But it goes over and beyond reach. What is their mind share? Are they aligned as an organization? Have they got expertise in pushing a product? Typically, we haven't seen many organizations that do, even if they've got a great reach, even if they've got great supply chain and distribution. And what that typically means is you need a parallel sales organization on the ground. And what I'm talking about is boots on the ground. And that is something from an HR perspective, from an incentives perspective, we see that often get missed. And it's so basic, but it's actually the trick that actually makes this work and actually allows consumers to adopt product. Going back to the affordability challenge, I think if you haven't figured out entrepreneur financing or consumer financing, you don't have a route to market strategy, especially for a lot of energy products, good energy products that we've seen in the space. And I think it's really critical to think about that, again, upfront, not as an afterthought. And I'm talking about some challenges. I will actually talk about some of the solutions that we've been seeing in the space. Over the last 14 years, we've worked with a number of partners in India, in Africa. And in the essence of not having a viable existing supply chain, understanding that demand was hugely fragmented and dispersed, we co-created an organization called Dharma Life in 2010, which was really around getting product from manufacturers, be it a D-Light, an EnviroFit, and getting that to the end customer. The how was the critical piece, and that was through a village-level entrepreneur network. So Dharma Life, which is an India-based organization, has created 2,500 village-level entrepreneurs who are essentially the boots on the ground, who create that market awareness, who are trusted entrepreneurs that villagers can trust and purchase products from. And to date, they've sold products to more than 1.5 million consumers and are the trusted rural distribution partner of many organizations, not only social impact products in the energy space, but also across nutrition, sanitation, and water. And I think what has really made Dharma Life reach those numbers, yes, it's about the village level entrepreneur network. Yes, it's about understanding access and availability. But truly, I think it's about their back-end supply chain system and the fact they understand what it takes to do this, the fact they understand what the consumer needs. They have a user-centered design approach to doing things. So they don't just take product from a manufacturer. They test it, they reiterate it, and keep on evolving it. And they've built along a distribution and supply chain along from a state level, a district level, and right down to the end villager, and built in the margins along the way. So I think it's a really interesting example of an intermediary who is solving some of the last mile distribution challenges that we've seen to get energy products to the end customer. Another example of an organization that we've been working with, and actually with DFID, is MCOPA. So I talked about the consumer financing challenge. And in an innovative way, and Mary will probably speak more about this later, is through enabling consumers to pay as they go for the technology. As I said, solar home systems are expensive, and the systems I'm talking about, upwards of $100. If we can enable consumers to pay as they go on a daily basis through leveraging systems like M-Pesa, mobile money, GSM-enabled technology, a consumer can own that asset after a year. And MCOPA has done this particularly well. And I think what they've done, obviously they've addressed the consumer financing issue, but they've actually addressed a few of the other issues I talked about. So MCOPA are delivering a low-risk, durable product to the end customer. And the fact is people want it and they trust it. And I think the trust element is really critical here because MCOPA know that their consumer in Kenya perceive bigger as better. MCOPA know that their consumer in Kenya prefers bright lights as opposed to dim lights. These are really basic things, but it's important. They know that if they were to go to India, they prefer LED lights, not bulbs. These are simple things that enable consumers to actually trust them. Also, MCOPA has an on-the-ground sales team, which obviously helps because you're engaging with a human person that you know who wears a brand, and they also happen to be associated with Safaricom, which is probably speaks huge volumes in terms of credibility. But I think what I really take away from MCOPA is not just providing a product, it's providing a service along that whole year-long cycle that you are a consumer with them. So you engage with them from a sales perspective, but you're in touch with their call center along the way, be it from a proactive perspective because they see something wrong with your asset, or purely engagement so they ensure that you get a really good service delivery from your product. And I just wanted to share those two examples because I see them as intermediaries. We see them as Shell Foundation as enablers to the market to get product to the end consumer. And what we see is there's definitely a need for more and more of these players to come into the market. And what we found is it is definitely high risk. It definitely requires a lot of patience, a mindset to be reiterative, and it requires a lot of risk appetite. And that's why, for example, an example of MCOPA, Shell Foundation and DFID came together to provide that early stage patience and kind of support to get that organization along the way. So, this is a huge space. As Seb mentioned, the numbers are massive in terms of, more than 1.7 billion people don't have access to any electricity. And what we would like to see in the space is more of these intermediaries coming together so that we can address some of the challenges to the last mile distribution challenge and actually get to scale and get more products to the end customer. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Mary. I've got several slides. I'm going to click through some of them rather quickly, just in the interest of time. So I work for the GSM Association, which, if you've not heard of us, don't worry about that. I'm about to tell you. The GSM Association is the Global Trade Association of Mobile Network Operators. And we exist obviously to support the interests of our members. We have a global footprint. But also within the association, we realize that mobile can act as a great tool in terms of both social and economic development. And with that, we developed a group that is called Mobile for Development, which is my employer. And through that, we work on different programs, anything from mobile money to mobile agriculture to mobile health. And I work on a program called Mobile Enabled Community Services, which exists with the generous support of the UK government, particularly to look at how mobile technology and infrastructure can support access to basic utilities, both on and off grid. And we do that through 4 key activities. The first is we run an R&D basically grant fund to support kind of early stage innovation, as well as kind of the first kind of steps in terms of scaling products and services. We provide technical assistance both to the mobile industry to help them better understand how they can participate in partnerships, as well as with organizations who are already active in both the water and sanitation sector and energy sector, but are looking to see how they can incorporate mobile into their activities. We support research and convening, and we also try to spend some time working with either other philanthropic investors, donors, and or commercial investors to see how we can kind of link up the grants that we give to organizations to kind of future sources of funding. So, why are we interested kind of as mobile as a tool? So, this graph maybe is not very familiar to you, but quite familiar to us in the mobile industry, and it basically represents the growth of mobile-enabled products and services across emerging markets. What I'm showing you here is Asia Pacific, but you would see the same across South Asia as well as Sub-Saharan Africa. There's just been a huge growth in terms of kind of mobile-driven businesses and products. And the reason for this is really rooted around the ubiquity of GSM coverage, of mobile coverage. And that is, the presence of mobile towers in extremely rural areas, which all of a sudden provides opportunities for, other businesses, NGOs, et cetera, to deliver services using mobile. So what does this mean from an energy perspective? As we've heard, there's over 1.2 billion people who lack access to power. And our research shows that of those 1.2 billion people, 643 million of them live in the presence of GSM networks. When we look at that from a regional perspective, Sub-Saharan Africa is by far the largest market, but closely followed by developing Asia when you pull together East Asia and the Pacific, as well as South Asia. So overall, we think that there's a massive opportunity to leverage mobile to support access to energy. And there's we have very similar figures from a water perspective, which is the other segment that we served. So, why mobile or how mobile? We consider 5 main channels in terms of how mobile can accelerate access to energy. The first is through machine-to-machine connectivity. So basically, what happens when you can put a SIM chip in a product and have that product exist in very remote areas. The second is around mobile payments. So the proliferation of mobile money. How can that be used to support kind of financing mechanisms, which Mira spoke about earlier. We also consider mobile services. So how can mobile applications help to drive efficiency within the operations of businesses who are trying to deliver energy services? We consider mobile infrastructure and kind of the use of a mobile tower and its energy needs as a potential anchor customer to organizations that are trying to act as third-party energy service companies. And we also look at kind of the distribution networks of mobile operators have to support access to services. So operators obviously have an interest in having their customers have charged phones. So there is an opportunity to kind of work with the airtime agents that exist in extremely rural areas to support the delivery of other services. So yeah, just kind of going through the main opportunities on the right. We're looking at payment and affordability, remote monitoring and control, the anchor tenant model, as well as efficiencies. In terms of what we do in our grant fund, and I'll run through this relatively quickly. So as part of the funding that we received from UK Aid, we set up a 2.4 million pound grant fund with grants ranging anywhere from £25,000 up to £350,000 with a matched component. And the reason for the fund was really to both accelerate kind of the uptake of mobile and see kind of what business models were possible, but also to generate knowledge and understanding. So a main focus for us is to work with the grantees that we have, extract the learnings from those projects, and try to disseminate that out to the broader sector. We're currently kind of in the middle of our first set of grants, and so the learnings are still not public yet, but hopefully by February or March of next year, we'll be able to provide more context and more information on that. In terms of where our grantees are, our focus is primarily developing Asia and sub-Saharan Africa, and we have projects ranging from Cambodia all the way to Nigeria. Unfortunately, our project in Guinea, due to the Ebola virus, had to be shifted out of the country. So what have we learned? And this is not just from our grantees, but from the sector overall. The first is that mobile can be an enabler to a business. And really help to develop more in-depth customer insights. And there's a serious need to get more understanding about how customers and users both use and need energy to be able to develop business models. The second, and as Mira has mentioned, is that kind of this idea of pay-as-you-go has really taken off and has proven both the willingness and the ability for customers to pay for products. And actually, I would say, has helped to kind of almost kind of create different kind of products and segments. And I'll show you kind of what we've seen in a couple of slides. The third is that, really it's service over technology. So as much as mobile can be an enabler, what we've found is that customers are really in need of having a reliable service and want to have someone to call when something goes wrong. So while mobile can support, certain business models, you really do need people on the ground. And the fourth is that we're starting to see products and services evolve past, traditional lighting and charging services. And I'll give you an idea of that. So for those that didn't capture what Mira was speaking about in terms of how the Amicable model works, and we decided to start from here, is that there's two kind of main interfaces that occur. So the first is that customers pay for their access to energy using their mobile phone, and then they receive in an SMS version kind of confirmation of that payment. Then, MCOPA is what they call the MCOPA net, and many companies have similar kind of web-based interfaces, sends a message basically to the solar home system to say, X customer has paid Y, and that basically unlocks the system. So basically, this is kind of an indication of both remote, or basically remote control. There is also an element of remote monitoring that happens in their system. So on the right, you'll basically see a graph of kind of the information that can be collected via kind of the machine-to-machine connectivity and the embedded SIM. And organizations, not only Amcopa, but others, as we'll feature on the next slide, are using this kind of information to better understand their customers' behavior as well as their energy needs. And so, there's that element, and then there's also the element around technology and understanding kind of which technology is working when, if there's any problems with the solar panel or batteries. So what we've seen is that there really has been an evolution of this kind of model. There's still a significant amount of debate, a very healthy debate around whether or not the use of machine-to-machine technology is either too expensive or even appropriate, because there's many off-grid areas that are without GSM coverage. There's also been an evolution of business models that look at both on-net and what we call off-net credit transfer, and this would be usually done by a keypad with a code. What we've also seen is there's been a significant growth in global activity. So we're seeing these models being trialed everywhere from the Philippines through Latin America, with 20 plus companies that trialing these kinds of models. And we're starting to see some, indications that this sector will scale. So, currently in East Africa, we envision, or we estimate, that there's around 140,000 of these systems out there. In terms of the different kinds of models that have evolved, I wanted to give you kind of two examples. The one on the left is off-grid electric, and what's displayed there is the different kinds of service level that they provide to their customers. So they basically try to get customers to graduate from one level of service to a second level of service, et cetera. And as they kind of graduate from these levels of service, they add more capacity, both from a solar perspective as well as a battery storage perspective. And then on the right is Mobisol, which is an organization that operates in Tanzania and Rwanda. And I just wanted to give you an indication of the different sizes of the systems that they provide. So they provide everything from a 30-watt system to a 200-watt system. So there's a lot of variety that exists. The one thing, and I'm not sure if you can see that in the back, both these companies have a strong focus on after-sales service. So they do have, call center, agents on the ground, as well as kind of a guarantee in terms of their service level for their customers. Another model I wanted to speak about is the model that we look at in terms of using mobile infrastructure, so towers as an anchor tenant, and the experiences of OMC Power, which is an organization operating in Uttar Pradesh in India. This is a picture of one of their earliest power plants. So it's actually a power plant that's built on the kind of outside of the fence from mobile towers, but this power plant actually serves 3 mobile towers in its vicinity. Obviously the context is extremely important. So Uttar Pradesh is extremely population dense. And basically from that power station, they not only provide power to the mobile towers, but also provide basically like a milkman delivery service for charged products and services to their customers. So what you see here in the middle is their battery box that they provide. And then on the right, you'll see some of the lanterns that they provide, but also the trucks that they use to distribute those products. Now, the interesting thing about this model is that because OMC Power has a presence in the rural community, they have also the opportunity to better understand what products and services their customers want. On the left, you'll see one of their early prototypes in terms of an electrical bike that they've developed, and now they're looking at developing electrical rickshaws. And on the right is an image that comes from the company themselves in terms of how they view kind of graduating their customers up their energy ladder. And they're currently looking at village level Wi-Fi. Now that they have much more confidence and are more comfortable in terms of their customers' willingness to pay, they're starting to add actual connections, physical connections to households. They are also doing some water purification as well as looking at irrigation. So I just thought I would leave you with that. If you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch with me afterwards. Thanks.
Good afternoon. I'm Johnny Andringer. I'm Chief Executive of Gaia Wind. And Gaia Wind is a manufacturer of small wind turbines. We're not overly active in emerging economies. Our main markets are in the UK and elsewhere in Europe. Let me see. Oh. This one. I'll tell you a bit about the history of the company. Gaia Wind started about 20 years ago in Denmark. We moved to the UK in 2007. We've got about 800 small wind turbines installed in the UK, 150 in Denmark, 150 in Italy, and about 50 turbines elsewhere in the world. Our main customers are farmers, rural businesses, and large homes. And at the moment it's very much driven by feed-in tariffs. Farmers can make money out of a small wind turbine, and that's quite attractive for them. We assemble the turbines, and we have the main office in Glasgow, in Scotland. And in 2012, we were the 8th fastest growing company in the UK, and the fastest in Scotland. Our product, as I said, a small wind turbine. We only got one size. It's an 11 kilowatt turbine, and 11 kilowatt, that basically means roughly the size of a mature tree. The hub height is 18 meters, the rotor diameter is 13 meters, so the tip height is about 25 meters. What is important for a small wind turbine is that it has a big rotor area. If you've got a big rotor area, you can capture a lot of wind, and it means that you can get a good performance out of your wind turbine even when the wind speeds are not overly high, which is in most of the mainland UK size, and actually most of the size all over the world. Small wind turbines are at the retail side of the grid. So our turbines are used to offset an electricity bill. Customers basically save on the electricity price of the wind, on the retail price of the electricity. Where large wind turbines, they sell wholesale to the grid, and they compete with the wholesale price of electricity. So there's quite a difference between the two. The vision for us as a company is that in the longer term, large wind will all go offshore, especially in Europe. It will all move in the North Sea. And what you keep on land is small wind turbines at every farm in the UK. And that's what we're working for. As I said, we assemble in Glasgow, but basically our turbine is made almost all over the world. Value chain management, supply chain management is, I think, the core skill that we have in our company. We get our generators from Brazil, gearboxes from Finland, blades from Hungary, towers in China, Turkey, Italy. What we do in Glasgow is assembly of the nacelle and factory acceptance test. And we do all the sort of overhead functions, R&D, marketing, that type of thing. We've got country managers and value-added resellers in the UK, Denmark, Italy and Japan. At the moment we're doing a project funded by DECC, DECC Entrepreneurship in Energy Fund, in which we try to get the price of electricity down to grid parity. That is very important for us, because at that point in time we'd be independent of feed-in tariffs, and that is, I think, where our long-term future lies. What you can see on the horizontal axis is all the countries, or not all the countries, a number of countries in the world with their retail electricity prices. You often see that island economies like Solomon Islands, Tonga, Jamaica, they all got very high electricity prices because they run off diesel engines, where countries like the UK are a lot lower in electricity prices. But then feed-in tariffs make it feasible for us to sell over here. The this column shows our current levelized cost of energy, and we try to bring it down to this level. And by doing that, more and more countries will become feasible for us to export our products to. Now to the main subject, Tonga. Tonga is a small island state in the Pacific, in the southern Pacific. We were approached by them about 3 years ago, I think. They had found us on the internet and they were interested in small wind turbines. Tonga Power, the local power company, is generating power by diesel engines. And they have quite a bit of solar PV. I think they've got a 1 megawatt plant. But their grid is becoming unstable when there's a couple of clouds coming in front of the sun. The sudden drop in production is quite difficult for them. So they try to add different sources to the renewable mix. And they wanted to start with a small wind turbine. maybe building more small wind turbines or looking at bigger turbines. So totally funded from their own budget. They came to us, they bought a small wind turbine, and the turbine is basically connected to the grid. It generates electricity on the grid. We got some people from Tonga Power over to Glasgow, and we trained them on service, maintenance of the turbine, on how to install the turbine. We sent people out to site to mentor their first install and to show them how to do it all. We monitored the turbine over the internet using GSM. In Glasgow we can see the performance. I can see the performance of the Tonga turbine here on my phone. And if there's a problem, we can sort of, we can communicate with them and discuss what the problem is, when it was still okay, what the error messages mean, and probably advise them what to do about it. The turbine has been producing well, and a key thing as well for Tonga was that they've got cyclones every now and again. Beginning of this year, they had, I think, the biggest cyclone for them in 20 years' time, Cyclone Ian. And the turbine survived the cyclone, and that is due to the turbine can be laid down. I'll show some pictures of that. So this is about the location where the turbine was installed, on the main island, 500 meters from the ocean. The container arrived on site. All our products are shipped in, at least internationally, they're shipped in containers. Everything fits in a container. We can get 4 turbines in 2 containers. But since this was an order for 1, we used a single container. The people, as I said, they were trained on site on how to install and maintain and service the turbine. What you can see over here already is what I said about there's a hinge in the tower that facilitates the tower to be lowered without any big equipment, no cranes or anything. And they can lower it when a hurricane is coming and put it back up after the hurricane is gone. This is some things about the setup of the blade. Jim, the guy on the left, is our trainer. He went out over there and trained them in how to do all these type of things. Also climbing the tower, as I said, is 18 meters high, so there is a bit of health and safety and climbing things involved. But the people from Tonga Power, I think for us, they were the easiest customer we ever had. Because they were very well, they know their electrics, they know their mechanics. They used climbing, electricity poles and that type of thing. So it was actually quite easy to work with them. We've got a lot more trouble with our UK resellers than we had in Tonga. So the install was actually quite quick and smooth. And this is the installation team that is now doing service and maintenance on the turbine. And I think they also enjoyed it. They thought it was something very different and they enjoyed putting the turbine up. This is the turbine up and running. There was one discussion about trees. They didn't. One of the things I think that we did wrong is that we didn't train them up front enough about selecting a proper site for a wind turbine. If there's a bit of trees around, that immediately has a negative impact on the performance of a wind turbine. And the trees were a bit too close. We told them all about it, but I think they didn't fully understand the full impact of it. So at the evaluation after the project, we agreed to do a training on site selection and how to properly site a wind turbine. The turbine is still producing quite well. This is the inauguration of the turbine. The first minister of Tonga came to open it, and it was a big event. It goes quite well with our Scottish people because they also wear skirts. I didn't have a picture from Tonga of the self-lifting tower, but this is one as we've done it in Scotland. And this is what they do when a hurricane comes by. They lower the turbine in half an hour, and they put it back up after the hurricane is gone. This is a picture of the cyclone, and the turbine managed to survive that properly. This is the live monitoring of the turbine. You can see the performance, how much energy it produces on a monthly basis. You can see it on a daily basis. And that, this turbine is producing about 17,000 kilowatt hours per year. They hoped for 20,000, but as I said, that's a bit due to the trees around the turbine. I'll go through this quickly. This is a site that we did in the Virgin Islands, very similar to Tonga, but that is a resort that is not a cash-strapped power company. They've got very good energy yield. Also, this turbine had one hurricane coming over it already. They lowered it and put it back up again. Turbine is producing more. It's about 35,000 kilowatt hours per year. So that is a well-producing. This is the trade winds in the Caribbean. Very nice constant trade winds. Some learnings for us from the Tonga project. Tonga Power is interested in putting another 4 turbines up, perhaps thereafter another 4. But so far the project didn't go ahead because of finance. Tonga needs about £150,000 to order 4 turbines. And it is simply very difficult to raise that type of money. We went to a UK export finance guarantee. They brought us in contact with a bank, and the bank was, they could get an export finance guarantee from a UK TI, but it was simply too little money for them. They need to do their due diligence, they need to write their contracts, and after a lot of talk, they were prepared to loan £300,000 to Tonga. And they made a contract, and Tonga refused it because it simply was too expensive. All the costs and the interest rate that was charged was above what would make the turbine economically feasible. So that project at that point in time stopped. Tonga is now speaking with their partners in New Zealand to get finance for the turbine. And that will be important for the next step. As I said, Tonga Power is a very good, very easy partner for us to work with. There's a couple of things that we can do in improving performance. The DECC project, the 2020 project, will make the economics a bit, improve the economics even further. And it will also make the turbine more suitable for the low wind speed size as in Tonga. Off-grid opportunities are also important, but that very much depends on battery storage, which adds another level of cost and complexity to the wind turbine, but that is definitely a thing we want to develop for these type of opportunities. I think, yep, that's it.
Hi everyone, it's great to be here. I'm representing Ashton, and for those of you who don't know Ashton, I'll give a quick overview. I know Danny's a bit concerned about time, so I'll try to make this as quick as possible. Ashton is a charity that champions and promotes practical local energy solutions that cut carbon, protect the environment, reduce poverty, and improve people's lives. The main way in which we do this is through our annual award scheme, and so far we have rewarded over 150 sustainable energy organizations, and together they have improved the lives of over 40 million people, and they are saving 5 million tons of carbon dioxide every year. I run the international program, and the international awards are part of the international program. And what we look for the international awards is we reward, support, and promote organizations demonstrating innovation, excellence, and best practice in sustainable energy. So we cover the developing world and the emerging markets, looking at Asia, Africa, and Latin America. The two key things that we look for in organizations, one is looking at organizations that deliver social, economic, and environmental benefits, as well as we look for organizations that are doing sustainable energy work that has the potential to scale up or be replicated. Once an enterprise or a program has won an award, we also work with them through our support program to help them expand and replicate their work and disseminate their work. Working in emerging markets, one of the things that we've come across is there's a large disparity in the types of energy services available. So whether you're looking at India or Brazil, for example, you have different sort of energy services that are available in urban cities or rural areas, and the need of the people and the services available obviously differs. For SMEs, I think there's a huge potential to connect unserved populations. So these are populations that don't have any energy access, they're not connected to the grid, or sort of underserved populations. So these are populations that are actually connected to the grid, but they don't have reliable or sustainable sort of electricity connections due to archaic or overburdened sort of power lines. SMEs providing clean energy can help address the shortage of power and make sort of the grid connections more reliable. And there's tremendous opportunity to kind of scale up to provide electricity to millions of people and sort of really drive economic development. Sorry, I just need to get a glass of water. So the technologies that Ashton has worked with have mostly been solar. We're looking at solar lanterns, solar home systems, mini grids, and solar water pumps. But we also sort of have worked with microhydro, biogas, and biomass briquettes and biomass gasification. I think a lot of the things Mira and Mary have already covered in both their presentations, but all the years sort of working in sustainable energy sector, I think all the years have shown us, and we've reached one main conclusion, is that is to make energy access a reality, it needs to have three things. It needs to be available, it needs to be affordable, and it needs to be aspirational. So how do we do this? To make energy access available, so if you see the picture on the screen, this is the reality in many emerging markets. So if you look at India, for example, people have TVs in their homes, but they are still cooking on mud stoves using wood fuel. Today, over 38% of rural households in India own televisions, yet 87% cook on mud stoves, causing indoor air pollution, which is obviously an unhealthy and also an archaic and polluting way to cook. So it almost seems like the kitchen lags about 50 years behind the rest of the household in terms of modern sort of modernity. Similarly, in East Africa, you can pay using mobile money and you can use the M-Pesa system, but people don't have mobile phone charging facilities in their homes, or they need to walk long distances to charge their mobile phones. Due to the high penetration of mobile phones and the leapfrogging of technology, I think more people have mobile phones in these markets than they have toothbrushes or even sort of access to grid electricity. Therefore, we need to make energy access much more readily available. Making clean energy affordable, I think the examples I was going to use were of off-grid electric and of Meragao, which Mary went through sort of in her presentation. So I'll go through the off-grid example fairly quickly. Everybody, I think, agrees on the fact that market-based activities are now the way forward in terms of tackling sustainable development challenges, whether it's climate change, whether it's reducing poverty, or creating livelihoods. The two main kinds of innovation that Ashton has seen is one is in terms of product and delivery, so innovation from SMEs and social enterprises working in clean energy on that front. And the second innovation is in the area of marketing and advertising. I'll come to that in a second. But just to go over the organizations that we've worked with recently, Off-Grid Electric is a leader in using mobile money to pay for solar home systems. They are providing sort of solar as a service at an affordable cost, and you can pay sort of in daily installments. Miragaon Power builds, owns, and operates their own microgrids in India, in the state of Uttar Pradesh, which again Mary talked about. And they are charging customers on a weekly basis, but the cost is as little as 40 US cents. Both these businesses are using interesting pay-as-you-go models, providing LED lights, mobile phone charging facilities, and with their entry-level systems, and they're meeting families' priority energy needs and offering an alternative to expensive and polluting kerosene. There are other businesses that do this as well, but this is not enough. We need to make the products aspirational. Greenway Grameen, one of our winners from 2014, realized this in sort of when they were marketing their cook stoves. So first of all, the smoke emanating from dirty cook stoves is a major health risk. We all know about that. Greenway Grameen soon realized that in order to develop an efficient cook stove, they needed to work with the women that were going to use the cook stoves on a daily basis. And it was really important for the cook stoves to perform technically well, but also for them to satisfy the needs and the aspirations of the women consumers. To figure out what the women really wanted, they worked over sort of with focus groups and interviews with women, and they did sort of 10 different iterations of the cook stoves. And the result of it, as you can see on the screen, is the Greenway Smart Stove. And that has been designed intentionally keeping sort of the efficiency at a slightly sort of lower degree. It's not as efficient as it could be, but it actually satisfies the women and provides them exactly what they want. So for example, the cook stove could have been a bit taller to make it more energy efficient, but the women wanted a slightly shorter cook stove so they could sit on the ground and cook more comfortably. So they had to sort of change the design of the cook stoves, but also change the marketing of it to make it aspirational. So instead of marketing it as a healthy sort of cost-saving product or environmentally friendly product, they had to market it as an aspirational modern appliance, which was good to have for every woman in her kitchen. So besides making sort of clean energy available, affordable, and aspirational, a lot of organizations are doing that, but they're also facing sort of some challenges. Recently, we did some research with Christian Aid that revealed that most enterprises delivering clean energy, especially at the small or sort of medium scale, had an unmet need for finance, be it grants, be it debt, be it equity, but the most important need was actually for working capital. So I think more finance needs to be made available to meet this need, particularly finance that can be accessed quickly and with minimal conditions, and with lower interest rates, ideally. Lines of credit could be one such example. Long delays in receiving finance can also sort of really push enterprises over the edge and provide a huge strain on enterprises. The second challenge that I'd like to talk about is technical assistance. A lot of enterprises like impartial advice on financing options, investor readiness, and also sales and marketing. The third challenge that most of these enterprises face in the field is the training and retention of staff. So for example, Miragaon Power in India, the policy was to hire locally trained staff in Uttar Pradesh, but they often found it very difficult. Women, it was not culturally appropriate for them to work outside their homes, so therefore they could not hire any women. And all the men would sort of come, stay for a bit, and then leave. Off-Grid Electric's answer to this in Tanzania is they're setting up their own academy, which will recruit students from university, train them, and then hire them into their business. The last two challenges I think we've talked about already. One is distribution to the last mile. This can be sometimes hindered by weather conditions. It's also sort of depends on the quality of the roads, and is actually quite expensive to get the products into the homes and into the really remote areas. The last challenge that more and more we've seen organizations facing is renewable energy policy as well as regulation in different countries. And this can be combated in various ways, whether it's sort of through access to finance, whether it's duty and VAT to get products in and out of the country, or as we've talked about, sort of we in Ashton have formed the Ashton India Renewable Energy Collective that has 20 previous Ashton Award winners coming together to really influence policy and be a stronger voice for policy at the national level. So that's a really quick overview, and I will hand it over. Thank you.
Which one is it? Sorry. Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Divyesh Thakur. I'm a partner in a company that manufactures solar lanterns specifically targeted for the aid business. Our business model is very different, and it's been very interesting to hear today from the various speakers on the panel on how they're trying to combat the problems we have in getting into the commercial market. I'm going to share some views with you on how we work in the aid agency business, because I'll assure you it's not easy at all to do the same things. We face the same similar challenges, but it's a very interesting route to market which will open up more opportunities into the commercial market. So I'm going to share with you how we actually manage to develop a product, get to market, go into the aid agencies, and what we've done and how we actually made inroads into this market. We have to say a lot of things when you go into the aid agency business, and that's very important that I put this slide up first, because when we mention aid agencies, it's very important that all of you realize that you're not allowed to use any of that information that you actually share with them or work with them to market your products in a commercial sense. So whether you work with the UN or whether you work with DFID or whether you work with any other agency, you've got to be very careful in the future that you do not use that for any commercial gain. Otherwise, you'll be struck off very quickly before you know on your contracts. We as a company started in off-grid lighting solutions by something that three partners coming together and having a like mindset. Now, when I say like mindset, we wanted to make a difference in communities that we were working in, but to people at the bottom of the social pyramid. But we also wanted to keep control. We also wanted to give them something back, but we wanted to give them something that was affordable, and it was cost effective, and it lasted, and made sure that it was something they could transition easily to. Now, targeting people at the social of the bottom pyramid, views are very different. This is what people use. The 1.23 billion or 1.5 billion people, majority of this is the kerosene lantern. Anybody can relate to this? Hurricane lanterns. These are very, very dangerous items which look good on when you look at them and use them, but previously they were the only source of light, and we wanted to transform it, and this is what we actually came up with. This is a solar light which looks very similar. Now, this is the first point which is very important, that it's got to be acceptable in the market. When you actually go into a market, it's got to actually be something which people can relate to. And that's why we developed a product which was portable. This is our key selling point, portability, affordability. So, talking a little bit about our organization very quickly. We have our own manufacturing plant in India. We have to hold in enough inventory, employ the right people, have the right standards, and we work in a business model where we give this lamp away for free. And that's what I tell the people, and say, how do you do it? Well, it's the British taxpayer, it's other taxpayers in other countries, they give money to your governments. The governments then actually give the money to aid agencies for the poor people to actually support them, disasters, humanitarian, all sorts of activities that take place. There's always people that are less worse off or more worse off, if I can say, than you, and they still have to be catered for. So the business model we follow is that we work in partnership with international aid and donor agencies who are transparent, put it that way, NGOs, foundations, charities, communities at the bottom of the social pyramid where they actually work with people on the ground. And we work extensively in the field. The difference with us is, my partner is also here from India today, both of us actually go out to the field. We go and live with these people in the camps. We go in Africa, we go into Ethiopia, we go into Eritrea, and we go into Somalia, and we go into Kenya, and we work with the aid agencies under their protection and see what these people are actually using, how they do it, what they really need, and address those needs. And I use the word needs because it's very important. You get all singing, all dancing, bright flashing light products from China and England and wherever you go, but it's no good if these guys can't use it. If they can't use it, they just put it away. And if they put it away, that's a lot of money gone to waste. It's taxpayers' money, which is accountable. So if you can relate to products which you can give to them, which they can use, boy, they're more enterprising than you can think. They will make use of it in many ways, and it'll make you proud because it'll save them so much money, but it'll also actually make a difference to their lives in many different ways. As a company, we were established only 4 or 5 years ago, but we designed this product in partnership with the UN by going out to the field, as I said. It took 18 months to actually get this product to this stage because it was to and fro. This is a requirement. For example, a little notch like that. I'll say, why, that's not good looking. But they needed that in the field because these sort of products get stolen. So they wanted to develop something to deter thieves taking it. So a notch to lock it away. Simple things like that, excuse me. And going through the whole process, we developed a product which was suitable to the requirements in those in those markets, in the aid agency market. We then went through a very long procedure and a formal procedure, whether it's with DFID or with UN, going through a tender process, going and passing and having all those bureaucratic routines which you have to go into these organizations to win those tenders. And once you're actually down that route, if your product is accepted and if it's working and you deliver, and you've got to have that back office which people said, you've got to have the support, you have to have the network, you've got to have the guarantees, everything in place, automatically you become a preferred supplier. And when I say preferred, you become a supplier who can actually give you a long-term agreement which will actually go towards them not going to tender all the time. They'll come to you and say, we want 5,000 lamps, or we want 20,000 lamps. Can you have them? Give us a time. And we have to hold those inventories, as I said before. We've been working now for 4 or 5 years, and our main client is a UN agency. I don't want to mention the name because there's plenty of other agencies we work with. We work very closely with UKTI as well, who I must say, if everybody has an opportunity, should work with, because they do provide something which very few other countries can, roads to market, expertise, advice, trade missions like mentioned previously. And to date, we have actually supplied over 250,000 lamps. Now this lantern, solar lantern, is good for a family of 5. So if I put it in perspective, like everybody is saying here, this has helped over 1 million people, and this is 1 million refugees. Now that is an achievement. So we feel very proud of that, and we'd like to actually grow on that. We work with the smallest clients as well. So there are many countries who are actually starting these projects. For example, a gentleman who has talked about the wind turbines in Tonga. He's made a huge difference in that part of the world. So we work in over 30, 40 countries around the world, and small projects develop into larger projects, bringing out innovation, finding money. That's another problem, which we're working with as well. We've all gone through this, 1.6 million people without light, harmful problems with kerosene and so on. So I'm not going to actually do that, but this is the point where you have to understand the end user's needs, and that's very important that you're going to address them. And this is done by innovation. We didn't just develop this product for the sake of it. We wanted to make it simple so people can actually use it, understand it, and it's actually going to be cost effective. The sun is still free in Africa. They don't charge for it. The price is free. So when you actually get that on the equator, it's 12 hours every day. It's easy to use. Put it out, charge it, bring it back in, gives you 8, 9, 10 hours worth of light. You can also charge your phones on this. Everything all built in, all one unit, completely robust, tried, tested. We've got a stand there. I'm sure I'll be able to show you more if you guys want to come in later on, and we'll be very happy to talk to you about it. Bringing in all these functions, phone charging, having light, giving these people all these facilities is something we got feedback from the field. Just to mention about phone charging, if we were actually in a camp in Dadaab in Kenya, and there were about 300, 400,000 refugees. We went into a corner where there were about 200, and they were all waiting to get their phones charged. They mingled into a corner, and there was this guy on a bicycle. He's saying, "Give me your phone, I'll get it charged. It costs 20 shillings. He'll take the phone down 10 miles down to the marketplace, get the phone charged, and bring it back in 4 hours. You don't know what happens during that phone. Fast charge, battery change, money change, all sorts of things. You don't need that when you have this. This is your own phone charger. Imagine how much money you save. That money can go towards feeding a kid, do a lot of different things. So the product is made as a multi-purpose tool. You can read around it, you can hang it, you can do a lot of things. That picture is very close to our hearts because you've got 10 children reading around that light. Now, if 10 children in a school can read around that light, you can see their faces. And if one of those kids gets out and gets educated and comes back as a doctor, he's going to help the whole village in that town. So all those sort of things are very important to people. It's got to be cost effective. But when you say cost effective, you're not going to have it cheap. When you give this light to these people, the money they save on kerosene, the money that it saves the aid agencies on transport, energy costs, illnesses, medication, when you have these sort of products which work, which last, which are tested, it makes a huge difference down the value chain to everyone, whether you're a manufacturer, whether you're a supplier, and the money is used more effectively. So we're very proud to actually work with organizations like this, but maintain a high standard. So we go for quality products. Like a gentleman said in the previous presentation, we go for quality. We don't go for quantity. Just to share quickly with you one or two examples. You may remember, the world's a very difficult place at the moment, and there have been so many conflicts happening. Recently, we've actually been involved very closely with the UK government in supplying the solar lanterns for the drop in Iraq, and you may have read in the news, and those lanterns came through. We've been involved in so many other programs in the Philippines, in Thailand, started back in the tsunami a few years ago, and it had to be tested actually by, if I can just go down, if I can just point to that gentleman there, he's the main tester for the Japanese Energy Agency. If he didn't pass that lamp, it would never have been used. So it's built of very high quality, and it works in different areas. Girls, women, how much they get saved. Women empowerment, earning money. We've actually got a program which we're actually rolling out for pay-as-you-go system, but it's completely based on a different model where cooperatives, where women are actually empowered to actually get phone charging. Quickly, another one on how we actually do this scale up. As I said, this is the model that we would like to talk to people about if they're interested. The same lantern with a pay-as-you-go system, electronics built in, and it's actually going to be something that we're going to be testing out with an aid agency in Kenya, who are on a pilot basis. But to scale this up, I'm looking for money, and I'd like some partners. So we're very, very excited about this, but to take it to the next level, we need to actually have support. We need somebody to actually show us how to get some finance. Up to 100,000 homes are targeted. That's 500,000 people, and that's a 3-year program. And we have full statistics programs, how we actually need to achieve it. We've done a lot of research on that. So we'd be very happy to talk on this, because all we want to actually get to is it's got to be a win-win situation for everyone, everybody up or down the value chain. Just to summarize quickly, when you go to aid agency or target aid agency business, you've got to be very innovative and flexible, because the competition is great out there, but it's also extremely competitive. You must address the local needs. You don't build products to show people and say this will work for you. They've got to be able to relate to it, like the stove that lady showed in the last program. It's something that they've got to be able to appreciate and understand and enjoy using. Do not compromise on quality. because as soon as the quality goes, people lose interest, but aid agencies also start losing interest. It's got to be cost effective, sustainable in every possible way, durable, and the products, once you give somebody a good product, they'll look after it. And you must, within the organizing these programs, understand very clearly the needs of these people. Otherwise, you'll find that it's a short-lived gain. And most of all, it's a long run. You've got to be very patient and be prepared for the long run if you want to succeed. Just leave you with this last slide. I won't want to emphasize on it, and some messages. Thank you very much.
Thank you to all of our speakers. I think the key messages coming from that session is that regardless of the technologies, scale of interventions, there are key common threads coming through, such as the kind of value of enabling environments, enabling technologies, but also continual learning, monitoring and evaluating to enable greater understanding of our consumers' needs, wants, aspirations. I'm afraid we are running horrendously behind time. So what I would like to suggest is that we go and grab some coffee, and any questions that we have for our speakers we can put to them over a coffee break. And I suggest that if we return back in 10 minutes again for the final session, that final point on continual kind of monitoring, learning, evaluation is very crucial to the final session. So if I'd like to kind of keep that in your minds. But thank you all to our excellent speakers for sharing their wealth of experience. And we'll see you in 10 minutes.